The disabled billionaire sat alone in his silent room. Outside, the world still feared his name. Inside, he was falling apart. Tears slid slowly down his face, quiet, steady, unstoppable. Years of loss. Years of regret. And no one was left who truly saw him. Then, the door creaked open. A new maid stepped in. He didn't even look at her. Why would he? No one ever stayed long enough to matter. But this time, something was different. She walked closer. Closer than anyone had dared in years. Then she gently placed her hand on his shoulder. And whispered something. Something so simple, it broke him. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But in that quiet, devastating way only truly broken people understand. Because for the first time in years, someone spoke to him with truth. And kindness. Welcome, beautiful family, this is where the quietest moments break the hardest. And the new maid? She stayed. She proved him wrong, without money, without status, without anything except the quiet decision to stay when everyone else had learned to walk away. He had a name that carried weight in every room he entered. Decades of relentless ambition had turned him into the kind of man people whispered about, not with warmth, but with that particular mixture of awe and careful distance that powerful people tend to inspire. He had built companies. He had influenced industries. He had sat across from people who ran countries and held his own without flinching. He had done all of it. And he had done it at a cost he didn't fully understand until the bills arrived, and there was nothing left to pay it except regret. His family had been there at the beginning. His wife, who used to laugh loudly at things that weren't even that funny, just because she loved the sound of her own happiness. His children, who used to sprint toward the front door the moment they heard his car in the driveway, before he started arriving home after their bedtime. His house, which used to spill over with noise and warmth and the specific chaos of people who genuinely loved being in the same space together. He had let all of it drift away. One meeting at a time. One missed dinner at a time. One promise deferred until later. Until later became never, and never became loss. And loss became the silence that now lived in every corner of his expensive, immaculate, suffocating home. The wheelchair came after an accident. The doctors told him it could have been worse, which is the cruelest possible thing to say to someone who is already certain their life is finished. It could have been worse. As if he needed confirmation that the universe still had room to hurt him further. His staff had adapted to him the way people adapt to difficult weather. Efficiently, without complaint, at a careful and permanent distance. They had learned, through close observation, that this was what he seemed to want. Because a man who has spent a lifetime holding the world at arm's length eventually gets exactly what he performs. He ate alone. He sat in silence for hours that blurred into days. He stared at photographs of people who used to be his entire world. He let the guilt turn over and over in his chest like a stone wearing itself smooth, grinding down the edges of his heart until feeling anything at all had become an exhausting effort he rarely bothered making. That was his life. Until the morning the new maid arrived and everything changed, with nothing more than her presence, her patience, and the 4 words she whispered when he least expected them. She came quietly into the house. No dramatic entrance. No announcement beyond a name on a sheet of paper handed to the head of his household staff. She moved through the rooms the way careful people do in unfamiliar spaces. Observant, unhurried, taking the shape of the place in before drawing any attention to herself. She noticed things immediately. The dinner tray from the night before, untouched and cold. The curtains pulled nearly shut against a view that should have made anyone stop and stare. The way the entire house felt like it was holding its breath, like every room was waiting for something that never came. And then she saw him. He was sitting near the window in his wheelchair, not looking at anything in particular. Not reading. Not watching anything. Not waiting for anyone. Simply existing in that specific, heavy emptiness that settles into a person when they have stopped expecting anything from the day ahead. She had been around grief before. She knew its posture. She recognized the way it bows a person's shoulders and dulls their eyes and makes them look somehow smaller than they are, even when they are sitting perfectly still. She saw the tears before he realized she was in the room. He heard her then, the quiet shift of her presence, and immediately straightened, turned his face slightly away, pulled the mask back on with the practiced speed of a man who had been concealing his pain from the world for years. She greeted him softly. He said nothing. She understood. She didn't push. She didn't retreat either. She moved to straighten something nearby, quiet and purposeful, and in her unhurried stillness, something in the room began to change. The silence, which had been the crushing kind, the kind that presses down on a person's chest, shifted slightly, became something different, less like absence, more like a pause before something. He watched her from the corner of his eye. She never looked at him the way everyone else did, with that carefully maintained, professionally neutral expression that is really just fear dressed up in politeness. She looked at him like he was a person, not a paycheck to protect, not a difficult situation to manage, just a person. And something about that, something about being perceived as simply human after so many years of being perceived as either powerful or pitiable, reached somewhere inside him that he hadn't been prepared to defend. His hands began to tremble. She noticed. She didn't make it a moment. She simply stepped closer, slowly, giving him every opportunity to wave her away. When he didn't, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder. He flinched. Not from pain. From the shock of being touched by someone who meant it. When had someone last reached for him with genuine warmth? Not the mechanical efficiency of medical professionals. Not the performed sympathy of associates at formal occasions. When had someone last simply touched him because they wanted to offer comfort and expected nothing in return? He couldn't find the memory. And that realization, arriving at the same moment as the warmth of her hand through the fabric of his jacket, broke something open inside him that had been sealed for a very long time. The tears he had swallowed for years came up all at once. He covered his face. His whole body shook with the force of releasing what had been compressed in there. The grief, the guilt, the 1,000 moments he would rewind if the universe allowed it, the I love yous that arrived too late, the apologies that never got spoken, the version of himself he despised for choosing conference rooms over school plays and quarterly reports over his wife's eyes when she still looked at him like he was her whole world. All of it came up. She did not remove her hand. She stood beside him, steady and still, and she let him break completely. Because sometimes that is the most extraordinary thing one person can do for another. Not repair it. Not minimize it. Not redirect it towards something more manageable. Just witness it. Just say, with nothing more than your presence, I see you. I'm not leaving. You are allowed to feel every single bit of this. After a long time, the shaking slowed. He lowered his hand from his face slowly. He didn't look at her immediately. He stared forward, breathing carefully, the way you breathe when something enormous has just passed through you and you are taking stock of what remains. Then he turned. He looked at her, searching, almost suspicious, for the thing he had come to expect from every human interaction. The angle. The strategy. The moment when kindness revealed its true cost. He found none of that in her eyes. Just steadiness. Just quiet, undemanding presence. Just the calm of someone who had chosen to be here with his pain instead of retreating from it like everyone else always did. For the first time in more years than he could clearly count, he did not feel completely alone. He pulled himself together the way proud men do, wiping at his face with the back of his hand, straightening in his chair, reconstructing a dignity the moment had temporarily dismantled. She allowed him to have it. She didn't draw attention to what had just happened. She moved to adjust the cushion behind him, practical, gentle, giving him space to reassemble himself without an audience for the process. He watched her hands. Simple, careful movements. Unhurried. Purposeful. He could not remember the last time anyone had done something small for him without it being part of a transaction. His voice, when it came, was rough and barely above a whisper. Why don't you just do your job and leave? Like everyone else does. It wasn't cruel. It was the sound of a man who had been disappointed by hope so many times that he had started dismantling it before it could disappoint him again. She paused. She looked at him directly, not with challenge, not with offense, just with a calm, clear steadiness that somehow made the question feel safe. And then she leaned slightly closer, and she whispered, "Some pain deserves to be seen. Not buried, not ignored. Seen." 4 words that changed everything. The room held them. He blinked. His jaw tightened, not in anger but in the specific way a person responds when truth arrives without warning, and they aren't sure whether to let it land or fight it off. He let it land. She returned later that evening with tea. She placed it beside him without ceremony or performance, as if nothing significant had passed between them, as if she were simply completing a task and he were simply a man sitting near a window in the evening light. He looked at the cup. Then he looked at her. And this time, for the first time, he did not look away. He reached for the cup. His hand was steady now. "Thank you," he said. 2 words. Almost nothing. But the way he said them, carefully, like someone relearning what it means to mean something while speaking, made them land with the weight of everything they were carrying. She gave a small nod. Simple. Unadorned. No performance of warmth designed to make him feel handled. Just, "I hear you. You are welcome. This moment is enough." He held the warm cup and felt something in his chest that wasn't quite comfort yet, but was near it. Something with texture and warmth in a place that had known only cold numbness for so long. A question formed somewhere deep inside him. He didn't say it aloud that night. But it was there, alive and quiet and fragile. What if there is still something left for me? If you're feeling this story, like and share it so others can find it. Comment where you're watching from now. Back to the story. Morning arrived differently the next day. He noticed the light first. The way it fell through the window and settled across the floor in long, warm strips. He had stopped noticing light somewhere along the years. Had stopped registering anything that didn't have the specific texture of pain. But this morning he noticed. When she entered the room and greeted him softly, he responded before the silence could swallow the moment. The words came quickly, almost without his permission, as if something in him had quietly decided overnight to stop fighting the simple human reflex toward connection. Her smile was small and unobtrusive. It didn't celebrate the breakthrough. It simply acknowledged it, the way someone who always believed in something looks when that something quietly proves itself true. He watched her move through the room. She was efficient without being mechanical. She never performed her presence. Never adjusted herself for observation. Never gave the impression of being slightly aware of whether she was being watched and slightly modified for it. She simply was. Something about that reminded him of a feeling he had almost entirely forgotten. What it felt like to be around someone who had absolutely nothing to prove. His wife had been like that once before. He had slowly, without meaning to, made her feel like she had to compete for his attention in her own home. He pushed the memory carefully before it could become a wound. "What is your name?" he asked. She told him. And with just a name, exchanged in a quiet room on an unremarkable morning, she became someone real to him. Not the new maid. Not an employee performing a function. A person. The days that followed moved slowly. But they moved. He began to look up when she entered a room. He began asking small questions, the cautious kind that don't reveal much but crack a door open. Then slightly larger ones. Then real ones, the kind with weight behind them. She never pushed. She never manufactured emotional moments or angled for his confidence. She simply arrived each day, consistent, warm, present, and gave him the quiet, extraordinary gift of being available without being intrusive. One evening, without fully deciding to, he began to talk. He told her about his wife. About the way she had loved him long before success arrived, and how he had somehow managed to convince himself that success was what she had actually wanted from him all along, that it was a gift rather than a substitution. He told her about his children. Their faces at different ages, frozen in specific memories that lived in him like photographs he couldn't stop returning to, even though every single one of them hurt. He told her about the moment, and there was a specific moment, there always is, when he understood with terrible clarity that he had arranged his priorities in entirely the wrong order and that by the time he recognized it, the cost of the rearrangement had already been paid. His voice broke several times. He did not hide it. For decades, he had treated his own tears as a security vulnerability, a weakness to be sealed and contained before anyone could find the crack and use it. Now he sat in the soft light of an evening and allowed himself to cry in front of another human being and felt, for the first time, that it did not make him smaller. It made him real. She did not fill the silence with reassurances or redirect him toward silver linings. She stood beside the weight of what he'd said and let it settle where it needed to. When he finally went quiet, she reached into her apron pocket and held out a handkerchief. Such a small thing. Such a complete and total thing. He took it from her, held it for a moment, then looked up and met her eyes with something in his expression that had not been there before, something open and unhidden and genuinely grateful. Not the gratitude of a billionaire acknowledging good service. The gratitude of a man who had finally, after years of isolation, been truly seen by another human being. "Thank you," he said. And this time the word carried everything. That night after she had gone, he sat alone in the room for a long time. But the quality of the aloneness was different now. It was no longer the suffocating, airless silence of a man sealed off from the living world. It was quieter than that. Calmer. The particular silence of someone who has finally set down something they had been carrying so long they had forgotten what their arms felt without the weight. He looked around the room. The photographs were still there. The memories remained entirely real. The losses had not been reversed or softened or made smaller than they actually were. None of what was gone had returned. But he was still here. Still breathing. Still capable, apparently astonishingly, of feeling something beyond grief. Still able to be reached by another person if that person was simply willing to stay long enough and be present without an agenda. He heard her at the door, ready to leave for the night, and something in his face made her pause without being asked. He moved his wheelchair forward slightly. Just a few inches. Just enough to close a fraction of the distance between them. A small movement. An enormous one. He thanked her one final time. And this time the gratitude in his voice carried everything that had accumulated across all those quiet days. The tea and the handkerchief and the 4 words she whispered and her hand on his shoulder and every single moment in between, all of it compressed into words that barely scratched the surface of what he actually meant but somehow conveyed it with complete and total accuracy. She held his gaze for a moment. "Get some rest," she said gently. And after she left, his face did something it had almost entirely forgotten how to do. He smiled. Not the practiced, controlled expression deployed in boardrooms across 30 years of professional performance. Not a performance of any kind. A real smile, small, imperfect, trembling slightly at the edges. The smile of a man who had been broken all the way open and discovered, to his own profound surprise, that something was still alive in there. He was still broken. He would carry the fractures for the rest of his life. But broken does not mean finished. The past still lived in him. The regret. The love he had failed to show in time. The family-shaped silence that would probably never fully leave. All of it is still real, still present, still heavy. But he understood now. And this understanding had arrived not as a concept to be intellectually acknowledged but as something he had felt through her presence and her patience and 4 quietly whispered words. That healing is not the removal of pain. Healing is learning to carry the pain without letting the pain carry you. For years it had carried him. Buried him. Defined the entire shape of his days. And now, slowly, quietly, through the simple and extraordinary act of one woman choosing to stay and see him, he was beginning to learn how to carry it himself. He didn't know yet what came next. He didn't know if the warmth he felt was the beginning of something or just a moment that would fade. But for the first time in longer than he could honestly remember, he wanted to find out. And that small, fragile, quietly defiant willingness to want something again was where everything began. She didn't fix him. She didn't have to. She just refused to look away. And sometimes, that is everything. What would you rate this story? Drop 0 to 10 in the comments right now. Hit the subscribe button, like, and share for more emotional journeys every day. And if it truly touched your heart, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support helps us create more stories like this. Every contribution, big or small, means a lot. Ready for the next story? It's even more dramatic than this. Click now. Thank you for being part of this journey.